Jeff is back to interviewing artists and writers on Everything is Awesome. He and his guests cover social issues from a leftist perspective. Check out all his many works at jeffsawesomepods.com. This is an Unspoiled Network podcast. This is Some Spoiled, a Song of Ice and Fire 2, the co-host Switcheroo, the rereading Return to Westeros, HBO Spoiler Edition, uncut, uncensored, and too hot for TV, bringing you the greatest hits from 1996. Call in with your requests now. We are covering chapters 34 and 35, Arya and Catelyn. In Arya's chapter, the Hound faces down Beric Dondarrion, and he winds up crying. Beric's dead. Or is he? Catelyn, meanwhile, is burying her dad, and Edmure is being kind of a bitch. Welcome to Unspoiled.
Monsters are dangerous, and just now kings are dying like flies.
I am the king!
Fuck the king.
Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I am Rashawn.
You guys. I am cutting it from the final cut, but I did the wrong intro again, and I really should just start keeping a tally of how frequently I do that, because I don't know why I would, because that will just make me feel bad, but...
Yeah, don't do that. Don't keep a tally. There are plenty of people already keeping tallies for a number of things. There's no need to add to that.
That's fucking true.
We need less tally keeping in the world.
As a tally keeper, I'm sorry. All right, so let's start with the Arya chapter.
Yeah, yep. So it was the Hound.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to give myself too much credit because I did watch the show, even though it can be really difficult to tell from the way I sound most days. I did actually watch the fucking show.
I didn't remember. Why did they put a hood over Arya's head to pull her to this place where they do the, tunnel?
Well, because they're in the super secret headquarters.
Okay. But did the last chapter end with them putting a hood over her head?
I don't think so.
Okay. Because it just came as a bit of a surprise.
They were at the inn with that really great innkeeper lady whose name I've already forgotten.
I think you mean the brothel.
Yes. Why am I being so delicate about it for some reason? What the fuck? but yeah. And then the huntsman shows up with the captive, and we don't know who it is. Mm-hmm. So we missed the whole journey to wherever this place, this bat cave exists. The fucking how unimpressed the Hound is with their super headquarters is also really funny to me.
I love the Hound. This whole thing, he is just kind of okay, guys. Sure. And they're like, we're going to kill you. And he's like, mm-hmm. He just really barely musters any reaction to things.
He is fucking leftist when we're looking at liberals being all outraged about Roe v. Wade and what they're going to do. And just oh, so you're going to cosplay your way through the revolution. Is that what's happening right now?
Oh, my God. The only reaction that's of any indication that he's having a feeling is when he's on fire, literally on fire, and then he starts freaking out. So, the Arya's hood gets pulled off, and they've been brought here specifically to deal with him.
Yeah, he's gonna meet the justice of this sort of I don't know, I want to call it a tribunal because it's not three people, but. He's been brought to face judgment for his crimes, basically. And it's funny because they it's got like this sort of veneer of due process, you know, like these are the charges that have been levied against you, and then at one point they're just like, well, I don't know, we don't have any eyewitnesses to how horrible he is, and then they just started like naming all of these dead people, and he's like, yeah, but I don't know them.
That was really, they named so many. I'm gonna read those names in a little bit, you guys, because there was something about hearing them in a row that I felt like it was an impact.
Right. But it wasn't even people that he killed, though.
Yeah, because they just eventually, they're just like people.
Yeah.
People that your guys... And he's
Yeah.
like, okay, but wait. Although it is funny because he said to Sansa, killing is the sweetest thing there is. I was about to say, sweeting is the killest thing there is.
I mean, also accurate.
I don't really know if that's like... I feel like that's like profound in some weird, slippery way.
Have you seen the memes that are going around with Rick Astley, you know, Never Gonna Give You Up guy?
Yeah.
And they're like, if you just change the words a little bit, it turns into a 9 Inch Nails song. So instead of like, never gonna give you up, never gonna make you cry, it's I'm gonna give you up, I'm gonna make you cry.
Just take the never off of it. Oh, and I love to when they're like, oh, how did you catch this guy? And they're like, he was drunk and just like chilling under a tree, and the dogs found him. And Thoros is like, oh, betrayed by his own kind.
Oh my god.
Thoros is really fun here. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, when Thoros said that, I wanted the Hound to be like, oh, hardy, hardy, hardy. like a really over-the-top reaction.
One time Owen was like making a bunch of jokes and you know, doing his thing, and his friend Chase just said, do you think your jokes are funny?
Oh my god.
And Owen just says that out loud sometimes since that, because he was like, that was like the most burned burn. Just because he asked in such a genuine, like, wait, are you under the impression they're funny? I just want to make sure I know where you're coming from here.
That is no friend. Immediate into friendship. How dare.
But yeah, so Thoros, when Arya sees him, she's like, that can't be Thoros, because she remembered him as like fat and bald and like just, and this dude is all like skinny and droopy and he's got all this hair. And later on, we see him addressing that. Yeah. Just being like, man, I lost a lot of weight, but I look old as hell now because all my skin is drooping, which is really a thing. Being fat can make you look younger for a little longer. Yeah, it really can, and you start sagging and everything. And he said something like, if I could find somebody to take care of all this loose skin, I might be halfway decent again. And you're just like, oh, that was too harsh. Right? Be nicer to yourself. Yeah, he says some maids could, you know, I could get some more into bed, and the Hound just is like, if they were blind. Yeah. And he just laughs and is genuinely like, that's a good one, dude. Yeah, but the Hound is just really unimpressed with all of this, you know. Their secret headquarters he's unimpressed by. Their sort of determination and devotion to protecting the realm. He thinks it's funny when they talk about being a Kingsman and being Robert's men. You know, he just laughs. He basically just laughs in their face about everything that they take very seriously. It's wildly disrespectful. Yep. And considering that he is a captive and is, like, bound and at their mercy, it really is something that he is just like, man. At one point he says, if you would just shut the fuck up and kill me already, because I can't take another second of you blathering. Lem says, we hold your life in our hands, and he says, best wipe the shit off your fingers then. And I was like good lord. He's like, my life is garbage, so enjoy. What is the meme you were telling me about? The fucking don't ask millennials if you fucking... Oh, right. What would you have done if you were aborted? How would you feel? You're not going to get the answer from millennials that you're expecting with that question.
That is the Hound. That is the Hound at this
Hound's
moment.
a millennial.
He is like, my life is garbage. I don't give a fuck about it. You want to kill me? Don't threaten me with a good time. Just fucking kill me already.
So, here comes Beric Dondarrion.
Yeah.
And making his big ol' entrance.
Yeah, my God. Not the punishment, but like the trial is going to be a trial by combat, and that's going to determine whether he's guilty or innocent. Basically, if you defeat me, then you've been judged innocent, because if you were guilty, the Lord of Light would make sure that, I struck you down. Which, when we get there, after all the talking, I was just like, that doesn't seem nearly as scary as when he first showed up.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Like, all this talk about how we hold your life in our hand and we're going to judge you for all these crimes. And then it turns out really just the judgment is you get to defend yourself.
Which is like exactly his wheelhouse.
Right? I just was like, well, did you guys think this through?
It's like somebody being like, all right, Natasha, we think that you might be guilty of murder. And to prove you're not, we need you to talk for 1 hour straight without rest. Oh, no. How could I ever? So, yeah, and when he shows up, Beric looks like shit. In the show, he just kind of, like, he's missing an eye, and he has, like, some scars. But, they had limited special effects to work with because it was a TV show. And they just basically made him look like a dude who had seen some things. But in the book, this dude looks like he maybe shouldn't be walking around at all. Like, there's,
Yeah, there's a bit when Arya's looking at him, she sees this scar he has, and then he turns around and it's on his back, and she's like, the spear went all the way through him.
It says that he's got a thicket of red gold hair hid most of his face, save for a bald spot above his left ear where his head had been smashed in. One of his eyes was gone, the flesh around the socket scarred and puckered, and he had a dark black ring all around his neck. So yeah, this man is freaky.
It looks like he has died, multiple times. So then they when they tell him that he is going to be tried for murder, and he's just like, fucking, I didn't murder anybody. So, like, he says lay these dead children at somebody else's feet, or somebody else's door. Because I wasn't at none of these places y'all talking about. And then that's when they hit him with the laundry list of crimes. And the Hound is like, wait a minute. Are you fucking... I'm not my brother. Are you going to, like, charge me with every crime that the Cleganes have ever committed? Tell me who I fucking killed. Who did I murder? And I love this because even though he may not have murdered all of these people that they're throwing in his face, we all know that he is in fact a murderer. Right? But so he is standing there proclaiming that he has not murdered anybody. And then Arya pops out and he's like, okay, yeah, that one I did kill that kid.
Let me read these. Okay. So he says, who did I murder? Lord Lothar Mallory and Sir Gladden Wild, said Harwin. My brothers, Lister and Lennox, declared Jack Be Lucky. Goodman Beck and Mudge, the miller's son from Donnelwood, an old woman called from the shadows. Merriman's widow, who loved so sweet, added Greenbeard. And I'm like, Greenbeard? You can't just be like, oh, that bitch that I like to fuck. She fucked real good.
No.
Them Septons at Sludgy Pond. Sir Audrey Charlton, his squire Lucas Root, every man, woman, and child in Fieldstone and Mousedown Mill. Lord and Lady Deddings that was so rich. What a weird... Why would you say that part? Tom Sevenstrings took up the count. Alan of Winterfell, Joth Quickbow, Little Matt and his sister Rhonda, Anvil Rynn, Sir Ormond, Sir Dudley, Pate of Moray, Pate of Lancewood, Old Pate, and Pate of Shermer's Grove. Just say the 4 Pates. Right. Be done with it, sir. Blind Will the Whittler, Good Wife Marie the whore, because we have to have good wife and whore. Becca the baker, Sir Raymond Derry, Lord Derry, young Lord Derry, the bastard of Bracken, Fletcher Will, Harsley, good wife Nala, and he just says, "You're just making noise. Who are these people?" And they're just like, "These are people that Lannisters killed." And he's like, "Okay, well, that's just fucking stupid then." What are you even talking about?
Like, it wasn't my sword. Like, anybody who says I did it is a fucking liar.
Yep.
And then they're like, "Well, you served the Lannisters." And
this is honestly some bullshit.
Well, and the Hound says, "Okay, yeah, I did." He says once. And then he says, "Me and thousands more." And is each of us guilty of the crimes of the other? And, that's a real philosophical question. And then Clegane is just like, and maybe you're all knights after all. You lie like knights. Maybe you murder like knights. And then everybody gets like really like, oh, you talking shit?
I don't lie about what I am, so kill me, but don't call me a murderer while you stand there telling each other that your shit don't stink. You hear me? And this is when Arya is like, "Micah, you killed Micah." And she says who he is. And he realizes that she's Arya.
Yeah.
He puts it together and it's like, no shit.
Yeah, and just laughs. And it's like, "Don't you know you're dead?" She says, "No, you're dead."
I love it. And he's like, "Your sister backed up the other story, if you recall." And Arya is like, "Yeah, well, fuck that bitch, though. She lied. We all know she lied." And yeah, eventually he's just like, "Yeah, I did it."
Yep. And because it's for a second, like, also they're fucking while Arya is going off, Thoros and Beric go to the side a little bit and like have a little chat. And Arya is watching, and she's realizing that they're not just going to kill him the way she thought.
Yeah.
This is not just going to be like an execution. And sure enough, they show, they turn around and they end up telling everybody, "Well, you're accused of murder, but we don't have any real witnesses. So we can't judge you after all," which is such a fucking cop-out. It is such a cop-out.
Agreed.
Like, I'm not saying that I personally think the Hound needs to be held responsible for the crimes of the house he served and everybody he served with, though I think there is, like, some merit to that. But if these people, these brothers, are really about that life, the way they profess, then this is a fucking cop-out. Because if you are accusing him of crimes and you are standing up for the small folk and you don't think there's really any substantive difference between a person who's following orders and the person who's giving the orders, then you have all you need.
Yep, agreed.
But they decide that they are not actually that, I guess, I don't know, fundamentalists. They decide that they are going to stand aside and let the Lord of Light make the call by way of combat. And Arya is not here for this.
Not even a little bit. And I will say, too, like, they're like, "All right, well, here's your sword and your shield." And he's like, "I need armor." And they're like, "Yeah, well, sorry about that." And he's like, "Oh, really? So I'm going to fight this guy who's got a full breastplate on." And Dondarrion is just like, "Okay." And he takes that shit off. He just takes it off. Which I felt like, wasn't expecting that. Were you there?
When they tell the Hound that it's going to be combat, he just laughs in their face again. And then it's like, "All right, well, which motherfucker is it going to be? Is it going to be you, Lim? Is it going to be you, Huntsman? What about you, Greenbeard?" Like, he's like calling people out and laughing like, who's it going to fucking be? Come on. Yep. And that's when Beric is like, "Oh, it's going to be me, you face." And Clegane really kind of quiets down a little bit.
Yeah.
And then starts to be concerned about armor and who's wearing a breastplate and all that kind of shit. Where a minute ago, he wasn't really worried about all that, was he?
Yeah. Beric's got a bit of a rep.
Also, there's a kid in this whole chapter named Ned.
Yeah,
and every time they call him, Arya has like a little bit of a moment, like, you know, like she knows obviously it's not going to be her father that pops up, but it's just kind of like a, you know, kind of moment for her, and I just was like, oh.
I like that being addressed because, you know, George really puts a lot of reused names in his books.
Mm-hmm.
And I just appreciate the acknowledgement that, like, it's gonna happen. You're gonna run into people with the same name as somebody who meant a lot to you, and how weird that is when it happens.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Then when Beric takes off his breastplate, and like you said, he is a whole mess.
Yeah.
And also, like, his quilting underneath is all rotten and shit, and it's like, it doesn't look great. And Gendry just actually says out loud, like, "Mother have mercy." Like, when he sees him, like, God damn.
Do you know, yesterday, I had done this workout that I haven't done in a minute, and I was so tired. And I took a shower, and I went and sat on the couch, and it felt so good to sit and put my feet up. And I said, "Mother have mercy," as I lay back, and then I was like, wow, when did that become a thing that I just say? But apparently it has. So yeah, she sees Beric light his sword up, and the Hound is like, you know what? Fuck all y'all, because the flaming sword is the thing that he hates, and that's supposed to be Thoros' thing. And here this guy is doing it. And he's just kind of like, this is not fair, y'all. And when she looks at it, she's like, "Is that wildfire?" To Gendry, and he's like, "Wildfire is green. This is something else."
Yeah, this is different. And she's like, "Magic?" And then they just kind of have like a moment of being like, I don't know what else it could be.
Yep.
I love this bit too when they're after they're like giving him his sword and everything, and they kind of are going to cut the Hound's hands free so he can fight, and they're like, "Do you have any honor?" But they also call him a dog. Like, does a dog have honor? And being like, you know, just in case you think that the minute we uncut you, you're going to just like go crazy up in here and like snatch somebody as a hostage or whatever. Like, that's not going to go down.
Yeah.
And so we have some of the other men that are like circling this sort of, you know, this ring they're going to fight in with arrows and shit in case he tries to like buck.
Yes. Buck indeed. So the fight begins, and Beric is really good.
After
and Arya
they pray.
is watching. Oh, right. The fucking prayer in which the Hound just says, "I curse all of you to the pits of hell," basically. That's my prayer, is I hope that you guys all burn for eternity.
Yeah,
now let's go.
The Hound is like, "You know what? I hope your God's a sweet one, because you're going to meet him in a minute."
So there's a few moments here where Arya has some real hope that they're going to win, because the Hound looks genuinely scared.
Yeah.
Beric is not playing. And she sees the whites of his eyes. He's going to lose, she told herself, exulting. He's going to die. And then, all of a sudden, he gets some fire on him.
Yeah,
a little bit of fire on him.
Yeah, he catches on fire, his arm does. And that just changes everything.
Yep. The shield was on fire. Like, he backs into a fire, I think, at one point. I'm trying to find the spot here where...
Yeah, he's, when she's watching, like, oh, he's gonna die, he's being forced backwards toward the fire pit that's in the room. And he kind of stumbles back into it. And, he gets the fire, like, he feels it on the back of his legs and everything. And that sends him barreling towards Beric. And then Beric, I think, is the one who actually sets him on fire, like, proper.
Right. So, yeah, the flames had spread across the chipped yellow paint, and the 3 black dogs were engulfed. And this basically means that he completely, like, goes ham. Because this is a trigger for him.
Yeah.
And he slices through Beric's sword. The Hound's cold steel plowed into Beric's flesh where his shoulder joined his neck and clove him clean down to the breastbone.
Yep.
The blood came rushing out in a hot, black gush. Black gush. Interesting.
Weird, right? At this point, the Hound is not even thinking about Beric. He's on fire.
Yes.
He is, like, trying to get the shield off of him and get it away with him, trying to, like, get the clothes off of him, rolling around in the dirt to smother the flames. And Beric goes down, and the Hound sword is still in him as he goes, like, fucking falls face forward into the dirt, and it's just bleeding everywhere, and everybody is watching, and it's quiet. Nobody has said anything. And Arya is watching this, and she's just like, I don't understand. Why didn't Beric win? I was praying. I did all the stupid prayers, and the Hound is guilty. Like, and she, like, the rest of these people in this room might act like they don't know for sure what the fuck he's done or what he hasn't done. But she is convicted. She knows what the fuck he's done. So she doesn't have any of this ambivalence and nothing. She fucking knows. And the Hound is meanwhile on the ground crying, begging for someone to help him for his arm that's burned. And she is looking at him, and she is stunned that he is crying like a child, like a baby. Yeah.
So Thoros tells them, all right, patch up his wounds. Lem, Jack, help me with Lord Beric. Ned, you'd best come too.
The huntsman is like, we can fucking take him to the sept right now and put him back in a cage. Arya is like, yes, we can do that. We absolutely can do that. And Greenbird calls her an angry squirrel.
And I love Harwin says R'hllor has judged him innocent. And she's like, who's R'hllor? And I love this. Thoros had taught us. She didn't care what Thoros had taught them. She yanked Greenbeard's dagger from its sheath and spun away before he could catch her. Gendry made a grab for her as well, but she had always been too fast for Gendry. Tom Seven Strings and some woman were helping the Hound to his feet. The sight of his arm shocked her speechless. There was a strip of pink where the leather strap had clung, but above and below the flesh was cracked and red and bleeding from elbow to wrist. And he sees her with that and just smiles at her and is like, all right, go ahead then. Go ahead. Do it.
Mm-hmm. Do it. You know, shove it in. It's cleaner than fire. And he calls her Wolf Girl. Mm-hmm. And he tries to stand. He can't even really stand up. And when he does, a piece of his flesh just, like, falls off of his arm. And he, like, his knees buckle. And Arya is looking at him like his arm and his face. That's where it should fucking go. But it doesn't. She says, you killed Micah. And she just says she wants him to tell everybody that he did it. And he does.
Yeah.
He says, I did. I wrote him down and cut him in half, and I laughed. And then I watched them beat your sister bloody, and I watched them cut your father's head off. And Arya is... They have to, like, Lim finally catches up to her and grabs her and, like, takes the dagger away. And she is screaming at him to go to hell. To just go to hell. Mm-hmm. And then we hear someone say, he has. And she turns around, and it's Beric standing behind her.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's interesting that he has. I'm assuming it's, like, the burn is the worst possible outcome for him. Like, he would have been fine with death, but being burned again.
That's what I took it as well. Like, having to face and fight somebody with fire is, like, his worst nightmare. And then, it's like, Beric, I suspect, or I think anyway, that he should have. I feel like Beric would understand that bringing fire into a fight with the Hound is probably more dangerous than it is helpful. You know, I wonder if Beric understood that forcing the Hound to confront somebody that's fighting him with fire is probably going to trigger him into being able to survive, because he's just going to be so panicked, you know? And so that it wasn't really ever even about whether Beric was going to kill the Hound or not, but he was going to punish him by making him have to endure this type of fight. You know?
I like that. That's a good theory.
Especially if Beric is, like, not concerned about being, you know, murdered.
Indeed, yes.
Then the fights can really become theater, you know, and not just theater, but can become about the person that you are judging and less about him, you know, about Beric himself. And it really does, all of this really does become just about the Hound and putting him through something that is like his worst nightmare. Yeah.
I'm like it.
Yeah, I'm curious because I can't remember the fine details of the show, and I have no idea how closely they mirror the book. So, I
feel like it was pretty similar.
Yeah, right. Like, this part feels similar. I can't remember how we go from this to the Hound and Arya on the road show. Like, I cannot remember the transition, you know. So I'm really, really curious to read, you know, the next moments after this fight where Beric is not dead and the Hound realizes that, oh shit, he's not dead.
Yeah.
You know? I can't remember how that part goes. So I'm really, really curious to read what happens next with these guys.
The thing that I'm sort of, well, man, I sort of lost track of my own thought there. Because the idea that it's more of a punishment and that Beric knows. I was going to say, I mean, the Hound sort of like told Sansa what had happened to him in confidence. It doesn't seem like people know what happened to his face exactly, but I'm not sure if that's true. They know at least that he hates fire because he has never made it a secret. But as far as what actually happened to him to cause that, I'm very unsure how many people are aware of the specific story.
So this is my thing with Beric in that moment, and why that thought occurred to me, is that if I concede that there is really a Lord of Light that gifts his priests and priestesses with power to know things and to see things, then it stands to reason that they would be that Thoros and Beric would, or maybe just Thoros, maybe not Beric, but that Thoros would know that about the Hound.
Okay.
You know, but that is if you believe that sort of that religion and that mysticism really is giving people power, right? Which I feel like we're supposed to believe it's a real thing because we've seen Melisandre do some shit. We've seen the Beric can get, you know, is not dying when he clearly needs to be dying and should have been dead forever ago, right?
He needs to be dying.
So I feel like that was really rude. But what I mean is that if in the context of this religion, if they, you know, look at the Hound and have information and understanding of what would drive this particular person over the edge, you know, what do we use? Especially because it's fire and that's their jam.
Yeah.
You know? So if there's going to be any way, you know what I mean? So to me, it feels very much like that is within the realm of possibility.
Yeah,
where
that's
it
fair.
is a much more of a religious experience that's happening here than a criminal trial. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so that's the end of that chapter. Okay, well, yeah, I'm very interested to see what you think about the differences between the book and the show. There's been a few things that you've mentioned that I'm like, oh, right. This is we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. It's also going to be interesting for me because it's not so much about differences between the book and the show, but like what do I actually remember about the show versus what I'm reading now, and also am I remembering it correctly, which is not always accurate. So, yeah, I'm looking forward, especially because everybody, and you included, have been saying how we are getting closer and closer to the point where they really start to split. You know?
Yeah.
Like, it's going to become more and more apparent. And that is the stuff that I'm really, like, I'm really looking forward to it, but also, since we're all friends here, I'll just admit, I'm a little nervous because it's going to be new information to me, and there's no guarantee I will like how it goes.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know? There may be things that I learn that are in the book where I'm just like, oh, I don't like any of that. The fuck?
Personally, I think you will like it. It'll take a little bit of an adjustment, but I think you'll be like, oh, actually, this is really interesting. So we'll see. I may be wrong.
We'll see.
But so then we go to Catelyn, and they are burying her father. I was going to say at sea, but it's at river, and that doesn't really sound good. I don't like it.
It doesn't at all.
And there's something interesting here where Austin Arminio put forth a theory that, and I'm going to read this from his notes, this tradition of burial is weird and unique to the Tullys and is unlike other religious beliefs in Westeros, save for one, the Ironborn. Fan theory. We know the Ironborn ruled the Riverlands for centuries prior to Aegon's conquest. I think somewhere along the line, either some Ironborn intermarried with Tullys or the Tullys adopted parts of the Ironborn religion.
Yeah.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think so too.
But I found that interesting.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. I mean, when I thought it, when we were watching this, reading this bit, the water burial definitely was reminiscent to how the Ironborn are, but I didn't realize that the Tullys were like unique out in, you know what I mean? That no one else did that. Yeah, I like that theory. Also because, well, this is really unnecessarily shady, but like if the Riverlands were like once held by the Ironborn, and there's been like marriage and a mixture of marriages and customs and lineage, then is that why the Riverlands people are just like so fucking useless between the Freys and the Tullys?
Ooh, she just said it. Well, damn. Well, is it? I'll let you decide, listeners.
Because the more, you know, because when you start thinking about fucking Walder Frey, and then you think about whatever the fuck Theon's dad's name is, and you just start really being like, you know what, that energy is really similar.
Oh, that's funny. That didn't even occur to me, but I'll allow it.
There's a lot of like pettiness and pridefulness and entitlement that we get from Theon's dad that we also know Walder Frey engages in. A lot of like, oh, they all think they're better than me and I'm some lesser lord and they don't know how great I am, and you know, all that.
Yeah.
And then you've got like the way with Theon and his dad, and then you think like of Edmure not being like constantly seeming like he is less than, like not quite able to fill the shoes, you know, he's just not quite good enough. You know, even though he desperately wants to be, and seems to be aware on some level that he is not taken completely serious, and that like fuels a certain sort of insecurity in him that he then like overcompensates for. I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm just saying.
Damn, the parallels. So we start this off with him being like put into the water, and we are told who carries the funeral boat, and it's a mention of the Freys that are sent to like treat with them again, and we get a bit of info about when they first arrived, how insulted Edmure was. He sends a cripple and a bastard to treat with us. Tell me there is no insult meant by that. I have no doubt that Lord Walder chose his envoys with care. It was a peevish thing to do, a petty sort of revenge. but remember who we are dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really the thing, is that Edmure is playing right into his hands by getting this angry over it.
Yeah.
Like, dude. You know?
I also like that Edmure is under the impression that, like, this is so subtle. I mean,
right?
You know, like, you have to admit, like, I dare you to tell me that this isn't what he's really doing.
Right.
When what he is really doing, he is doing it really. It's very apparent. It is not, like, you know, covert at all.
Which is actually a great point about, like, Edmure and just his understanding of things. Because I feel like you let Edmure make decisions, and he is 100% somebody who is going to think he's being so clever about certain stuff, and it's just super obvious. It's always weird when you deal with a person like that. There's a lot of there's a lot of political cartoonists out there lately who I feel like strike this particular chord for me, where they think they're doing something with their cartoon, and they think they're really being clever with this metaphor that is, like, so ham-fisted and also just incorrect, but you know, they are not making the point that they think they're making. So, to continue on with Edmure being sort of sad, it is his turn to fire the fire arrow.
Oh my God. This was just... This felt like it took 30 years. It was so hard to read this and watch this, and I was reminded at just how my secondhand embarrassment was just flared up watching this happen on the show, because they did a pretty much scene for scene, you know, retelling of this moment. And it is just, the levels of awkwardness are sky high. Like, I thought I was going to just fold into myself as I was reading this. I was cringing so hard.
I love it too, because that is not something you get a lot in these books. Just like straight up like cringy embarrassment. Exactly. Somewhat in the Theon chapters, but even then there's like so much violence he's perpetrating that it's usually superseded by this sort of like, God, that's fucked up, dude.
Yeah. I mean, this whole thing, like, I have a certain amount of sympathy for Edmure because, you know, being expected to perform something like this under these circumstances, I can't really imagine doing. But I'm also not the Lord of the Riverlands in this universe, so I haven't been trained for this. I like how you said
in this universe, like, I'm the Lord of the Riverlands in a different one, but not this one.
And one that you guys don't know about yet, I'll tell you about that some other time. But in this one, but yeah, like, I am like, you know, I am empathetic to the point where I can't imagine having to perform on the spot under these circumstances. But my point was, he knows that this is part of the job. This is part of the tradition. This is what is expected of him in his position to do at his father's funeral. And it's an extraordinary amount of pressure, and he does not meet it. Nope. And it is just like, it's just such a low moment for all. No one is happy. No one is cheerful. No one is celebrating. Even in this sort of like, I hate him, he sucks, so I'm glad this bad thing happened to him. Like, nobody is taking any pleasure in this. This is just bad all the way around for everyone involved.
Agreed. Yeah, and it's interesting. Austin in the notes says that in the show, like, the Blackfish is real impatient with him. And in, like, in the book, he says, well, I was also really fucked up at my father's funeral, so I understand.
Yeah, and Cat is actually the one.
It's interesting that in the show they just made him go, give me the fucking bow, you know?
It's, and here in the book, which I like better, I had forgotten it, obviously I'd forgotten that there's that moment with the Blackfish kind of like taking over before Edmure gets a chance to even like attempt it a second or third time. Maybe a third time. I think he gets 2 shots on the show. But either way, yeah, the Blackfish ends up being, like, exasperated and just like, let me do it. But here, not only does he say, you know what, I missed when I had to do this because this is a really hard thing to do. It's Catelyn that's like, Yeah, but you only missed the first time. You nailed it on the second time.
Yeah.
Which, is like she couldn't even let him have, like, that moment of...
You okay?
Sorry, Steve walked in, and I was trying to let him know where the baby was without interrupting us, but here we are.
Your voice just suddenly was in a tunnel.
So... Yeah, I just like, and then there's a moment right after when it's actually finally officially done, and he's like sailed away and kind of on fire, where she reaches for Edmure's hand and sort of like comfort, but he's already gone.
Yeah.
And I was like, bitch, he was trying to get comforted for a second ago, and you ruined that. So like, why would he still be standing there?
Well, she didn't say it to him.
She doesn't say it?
No, she just thinks it to herself, doesn't she?
I thought she said it to her uncle. I thought she actually said it out loud to her uncle. I might be wrong.
It's no disgrace to miss your shot. Edmure should hear that. Went down river. Hoster missed as well with his first shaft. You're right. His second found the sail. Yep, you're right. He says it out loud. She doesn't say it to Edmure.
Yeah.
She says it to her uncle, though.
And I think Edmure might have actually walked away, so he didn't hear any of this. So it's just her and her uncle talking, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, we were both right a little bit. She lies to her brother too, you guys. He's so distraught. We find out that the night before he took the death of his father really bad and gets basically shit-faced. Mm-hmm. And is crying and weeping and, and regretting everything in their relationship, which, we didn't get into a whole thing, but yeah. That's just how it be. But he is saying to Catelyn, did he ask about me? Did he say my name? I should have been there when he was dying instead of off in the battles. And it turns out his father did not ask for him. He did not say his name. But Catelyn doesn't have the heart to tell her brother that, so she lies.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I don't know. What do you think about that? Like, I don't want someone to say something hurtful and painful just to cause somebody pain. Like, that's not fun to read,
Yeah. It's the kind of thing where it all depends on, to me, the reaction that you think they're going to have to either one. And, there are some times where a person is asking a question like that because they are still in so much pain, like Edmure, and they feel guilt, and they want to know that maybe that person wanted to fix things as well, and they just may have gotten the chance to do it if circumstances had worked out differently. And in that case, I can see it being fine. But there are also going to be times where somebody is still hurt but angry and bitter in a way that they need to let it go. They need to sort of move on mentally in a way that just telling them no they didn't might help with.
Right. Right. Yeah. That's the thing though, trying to determine which situation is which,
Exactly.
When to do the thing. I think that when I look at the relationship as a brother and sister who have lost their father, I feel like, yes, tell him, anything to console him in these moments of grief, right? Okay. Tell him that your father, yes, he thought of you. He asked for you. You were on his lips as he died. Mm-hmm. But I guess outside of a close family relationship, thinking about Edmure as a leader, especially in the time that they are in right now with so much uncertainty, that you need him to be stronger and willing to hear, and not willing, but able to hear hard things and hard truths.
Yeah.
And be able to continue to move forward despite those things. So it's not that I wish that she were cruel and said, no, he didn't. But I think that I like the thing that you said about, having, a finality to a thing, and sort of being you need to shut the door of trying to gain the approval of a man who is not here anymore.
Yeah.
And we need you to figure out what kind of man, what kind of leader you're going to be, you know?
Yep.
And maybe a step in that direction is taking a very hard truth and learning how to navigate with that truth in your life, you know? Mm-hmm. So as a sister, I understand what she did, but as, like, a woman in a highborn place that's privy to everything that they're facing and how the odds are incredibly stacked against them and getting worse by the day.
Yeah.
But I guess on the same token, what I could be saying, instead of like backseat quarterbacking her choice, Catelyn, I could be like, oh, I just wish Edmure was a better type of man. Mm-hmm. So that she didn't need to coddle him in this way. Yeah, so I go back and forth.
Yeah, there's a moment where she thinks to herself, Edmure was not as strong as he seemed. And I was like, Cat, I got news for you. He does not seem strong to anybody. Like, I don't think that's an impression I've seen anybody get from him.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But... And also, like, you could have gone to see him. Edmure's been here with their father slowly dying.
Yeah.
You know, like, and he was literally in the building and just never went. So there's a big part of me that's also just kind of like, dude, it's one thing to be like, we never reconnected and I lived across the country. And it's another thing to be like, oh, I wish that he said my name. You were right there and you could have been there when he died and you just didn't.
I'm about to do that thing where I put like a bunch of emotions and motivations into a character that is not based on anything on the page.
It's my favorite thing.
I suspect that Edmure doesn't go face his father because one of the things I think he may have been afraid of is that idea that when someone is facing death, when they really understand these are my last moments and are kind of in and out, they can just say anything. And I think Edmure might have been afraid of the things his father may have said.
Interesting.
And maybe he stayed away on purpose. And then that compounds the guilt he feels after his father is gone. But I don't know. I
accept that.
I could be projecting.
No, that makes sense to me. It's just rich to me to just be like, did he say my name as if you were just like held back from attending his deathbed? And it's like, no.
Yeah. He flat out is like, I shouldn't have gone to that battle. When I was reading the bit when he says that, I was like, wasn't that a minute ago though? That battle wasn't like he's talking like it was this week.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. Robb says that I wish I had gotten to know him better. He would have wished that too, said Catelyn. There were too many leagues between Riverrun and Winterfell, and too many mountains and rivers and armies between Riverrun and the Eyrie, it would seem. Lysa had made no reply to her letter. Which, it's cold.
Yeah.
But the last word that he says is Tansy. Still. Comes up again.
Yep.
Any advancing theories about this?
Not a one. Not a one. Especially after there was a Tansy at that brothel.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Now I'm just like, is that name as common as fucking Brandon?
I mean, it sounds like it based on what Catelyn says. She's just like, Tansy's a low-born woman's name. So it's common enough that she's immediately like, this is a very particular type of woman. So at this point, the Freys attend and are like, so should we have a little bit of a chat?
Yeah, they have the sort of feast after the funeral, and there's a bit right after the funeral where Cat and Robb get into a little bit of it's not like an argument, but it's you know, I guess tense, because it's tense enough that when she gets called for dinner, she's like, oh good, I'm glad he listened, he's let me come to dinner. Yeah. But they go and have a talk, and it's basically just first of all, Catelyn is telling us, she's remarking about how Robb is around Jane and the Westerlings versus how he is any other time. Like, it's the only time she sees him laugh. And she talks about how these two brothers are, like, clearly surrogates for Bran. And then she says one of them is kind of like a Theon / Jon Snow stand-in.
Right. Yeah.
and that he seems much more like himself when he's with them, but then whenever her and him are together, all she brings him is grief. All she brings him is bad news. Mm-hmm. And it's not just about the news, too, but I think, like, the grief that they share, like, the losses that they have shared.
Yeah.
You know?
It reminds him.
Yeah, so that he can kind of get away from that when he's with these other people. As well as, like, not feeling like the weight of the crown on him. And she talks a lot about how it seems like that weight is starting to really get to him. Mm-hmm. And that he seems heavy even when he's not wearing it. And they talk about her. Is this when they find out? No, they don't find out about Winterfell until dinner.
Right.
So
this is when he finds out about Duskendale.
Yes.
And that is the thing that Roose Bolton set up. I don't remember how much we talked about it in the moment, but we were with Roose when he set it up. He was, like, talking about the advance to Duskendale when Arya was still at
when he was at
Harrenhal.
Was he getting his leeches when they were having that conversation?
It was, like, right after.
Right around that time? Okay.
Mm-hmm. So this is one of the things that Roose set up to make sure that that Robb was weakened. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, Robb is just like, Duskendale? What the fuck were they doing at Duskendale? And he doesn't understand it. And it's because that was a purposeful bad decision that was done to fuck you up.
Yep.
I feel bad for him getting screwed like this and just genuinely not knowing that's what's happening. Like, it's just hard to read.
Yeah, I was just about to say the thing. It's hard to read, especially knowing, like, what all is happening, but he's just so unaware. And you know, how could he know?
Exactly.
You know, it just... I mean, there's a lot of decisions that he made on this road that I am just like, oh, dude, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. But there's also a lot of other shit happening that there's just no way for him to really know. And he doesn't have... I hadn't really thought about it, but, like, whenever we're dealing with Tyrion or... Was that your phone?
That was my fucking caffeine. As usual. Sorry,
you know,
everybody.
We don't hear a lot about Robb's spies bringing him all kinds of information. You know, we don't hear much about, like, there's no Varys. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
And I don't know. I think I had assumed, without realizing it, that I think a lot based on the very first book, especially with Ned, is that there is such dishonor associated with that, you know, that it just would be considered sort of unseemly to North people, to Northmen, you know, to be relying on gossips and whispers and all that, you know, but that puts him at a huge disadvantage over and over and over again because he just doesn't have any idea what the fuck everyone else is doing or what else is going on in the wider world that could be influencing these decisions, you know, that, like, he can't see the whole picture. So it doesn't, like, these things that seem like they're out of the blue and one-offs and don't make sense, he has real trouble connecting the dots because he's just operating with just such less information, it seems.
Yeah. And also, there's just the sense of it traveling really slowly. Like, they just get word of Winterfell in this chapter. And that shit happened a while back now.
Yep. And then he tells his mom... This is where I got confused about the timing of what's going on in the story when they find out about Winterfell. Because he tells his mom in this moment, right after they hear about Duskendale, he says, the Ironmen have my castle and now the Lannisters hold my brother. So the Ironmen had Winterfell for a while, but what the news that comes today is that everyone's dead. That's the big news, right?
Right.
Okay.
Most of them are dead. Most of them. It's like, a bunch of them got mysteriously rescued and are being held at the Boltons.
Yeah. Because they're still good guys. Wink, wink, wink.
Tee-hee.
But, so yeah, he tells his mom, he's just like, you know what, I should have fucking traded Jaime. I should have done that. And it's just like, you know, it's too late for that. What can you do?
Yep.
And
he's like, I should have set up Sansa to marry
the Tyrells.
Yeah,
yep.
and I'm just like,
Yep.
oh, Sansa would have been so excited
Yep.
because that
Yep.
was exactly who she wanted. But also, like, as
Even
we
though
know, that would
when
not
he-
have worked out for her.
When he says that, like, that's like part 2 of the plan, right? Like, you would have had to have gotten Sansa, you would have had to have gotten Sansa back first, and then made this deal with the Tyrells.
Right.
So Cat is like, oh, well, you had a lot of other things going on. You were busy fighting battles. And he says, yeah, battles. I've won every battle, and yet somehow I'm losing the war. And fucking talking about fucking felt. Like, Jesus Christ.
Yep.
You know?
Yep. Trenchant.
Oh my God, it's so bad, you guys. It's so
So
bad in the
bad.
world. Jesus fucking Christ. Anyway, so then he tells her that Sansa's been married.
Yeah.
He got a raven
Her
or
assumption
whatever.
immediately is that she's dead.
Yeah. And he's
And-
just like, gone, dead? What? No, calm down. Which I thought was like a little like, I feel like being like, oh no, she's dead, that's where my brain would have went.
I mean, yeah, considering everything that's been going on.
Right?
When you
But he-
started off with, it's about Sansa.
Yeah,
Sir,
right.
we're in a war. What do you think that's going to sound like?
It's like saying, honey, we need to talk.
Right? Exactly.
But
You ate the rest of the Honey Nut Cheerios, and I really wanted those. Oh my God, is that all? This is very serious. I don't understand why. I thought you were divorcing me. I might. Is that just me? It's Cheerios. I don't know.
But the Honey Nut Jones are really good, though.
Did we do an episode on cereal for unsober?
I think we did.
I feel like we did.
Yeah, it feels like something we would have covered.
Yeah. I'm just going to put that in my little notes here to see if I have to check in on that. Cereal? Question mark?
But yes, we find out that she's been married, and Catelyn feels personally betrayed, you know, because she's like, he fucking swore to me that he would get her home to me safely for Jaime, and how could he betray me that way? To which Robb is like, he's literally a Lannister.
Mm-hmm.
What would you think of that? Like, what else would he do?
When did he make this oath to her? That he would give her daughters back in exchange for Jaime?
Girl, I know you're not putting me on the spot like that.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because, like, I didn't remember exactly when that, like, got set up. And like, you know, her saying he swore to me, I think that oath was
she says,
way back when he was in front of Lysa. And
well, she does say he swore it before the whole court. So that's the only time the two of them have been, like, really in court together ever, was at Lysa's court.
And, like, Kat, he doesn't have Jaime back. She's acting like we sent him Jaime, and he went and married Sansa anyway. Jaime isn't there, Kat.
Yep.
He isn't breaking any promise because it doesn't look like you did that. And it was just a weird reaction to me, to her be like, he broke his oath. You didn't actually fulfill your oath in an above-board public way.
Yeah.
You let him free on the sly and
Hope for the best.
Like, the army, the rest of the army is actively trying to recapture him right now.
Mm-hmm.
So you didn't do that. So being mad at him is weird. And that's not like, you know, I understand that she's mad at him because this was her one shot and it's like desperation and whatever. But the idea that, like, oh, he broke his oath to me. No, he did not. Not even a little.
Yeah.
You're being, like, very shady and expecting things to work out a certain way and, like, operating on as if it had worked out already, which it has not.
Yeah, and she's holding Tyrion responsible as if he has information that he doesn't have. You know, And then Robb is just basically like, well, they're Lannisters and oath-breaking is what they do. And it's just, like, done. There's no further introspection about this at all.
Yeah.
Which, you know, okay, granted, in her position, she's not going to be very generous to anybody anymore. But, yeah, I agree with you. She is really actually behaving as though they had a handshake deal and that they both understood what the other was doing. And that he got Jaime back and then just completely decided to not follow through on his end of the bargain, which is not at all what it happened.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. I just wanted to make sure, like, that you remember this the same way I do, because I'm like, is that what she can't mean that? There's no, and then I was like, I think that's all she means, and that's wild.
And she's just like, I should have fucking let Lysa push him out the moon door. Which I don't remember her getting in the way of that either. It wasn't like you stopped her from doing that, did she?
I think she did. I think that it was like or maybe it was Lysa? I don't remember, but
maybe she did stop because she was convinced that she needed Tyrion in order to get her daughters back.
Yeah, I think she did stop.
She probably did intervene. I mean, it ended up coming down to like Bronn fighting on his behalf, you know. Mm-hmm. But I think you're right. I think that Catelyn did sort of like interfere the first time. They were going to toss him right out that fucking door.
So, okay, then she basically is like, "Hey, kiddo, what about if you just surrendered, though?"
Yeah.
And Robb does not take well to that suggestion at all.
And she says to herself, he is playing the boy right now, not the king. He's, you know, I can't surrender. They killed my father. She's naming other cases in history, which he knows. He knows the history. Mm-hmm. But she is just like, you know, you're not even the first Stark, never mind the first king. You know, there's no shame in it. This one did it, that one did it. And she's like, well, did they kill their dads, though? Because these people killed my father. And that's when it's, you know, it's a noble cause, but I think that, like, things start out being noble causes and then gets lost so quickly. You know? Mm-hmm. Like, going out to avenge his father and rescue his sisters, you know, being king of the North, felt like, yeah, that's the appropriate response. That's how we do.
Yeah.
But they have lost so much. And what would it really cost them to bend the knee? And that's an interesting conversation because it would cost a lot for them.
Yeah.
In the long term, it probably wouldn't be. It would be as significant in the long term as it is when she talks about the first Starks that bent the knee. You know, you recover, you find a way to live, you know, and it becomes ancient history. Mm-hmm. But in the immediate, to lose face like that,
yeah,
they could never go back to really rule in any real way in the North. So I don't know, like, just laying down at this point, I don't think he can. You know?
Personally disagree. Like, especially once they get news about what's going on with Winterfell later, I wish that he would have considered this as well. Because it's one thing to just be like, I can't back down because of pride. But you don't even have a home anymore, dude.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, that's what I mean about laying down at this point. Because there's like, not much to save.
So
like,
you think he can't, though?
I feel like if there had been anything left to save Winterfell, you know, children, anything, that maybe, not that I think, all right, this is I'm all over the place.
I'm confused about what it is you're,
let me try to clarify what I'm saying. I don't think that Robb Stark, being Robb Stark, is ever going to lay down his arms. Period.
Okay, sure.
Right, so there's that. Mm-hmm. But then when I start to think about the reasons why he can't or won't and what makes sense to me and what doesn't make sense to me, I imagine that if there had been anything left to save, then maybe she could have made an argument, you know, because we can have a life. You can go back to Winterfell, and, you know, we can live there, and we can be Starks there, and you can raise your family there, and, you know, your sisters can have a place to come home and be safe and all that. But all that's gone. So the only thing that Robb can do is make, like, a place of his own, whether that means, like, rebuilding Winterfell, which he kind of needs to be in charge to really do, to rule it, you know, or, like, that's it. Like, he can't just, is he going to just, like, retire to wherever the Westerlings are from? You know, like, what happens if he really does try to, like, bend the knee? Do they let him live? The Lannisters on the throne? Do they, you know what I mean? Like,
I guess I don't really agree that he has to rule in order to repair Winterfell. I don't think anybody is going to give him trouble about retreating to Winterfell and trying to rebuild it. And
you think the people in the North would still, like, I don't know.
He's a Stark. It's a bloodline. I don't think it's up to them. And I don't think that they would fly in the face of that. They might not, like, they might not have the respect for him that would require him to, like, muster them again if there were another war. But that doesn't mean that he wouldn't be able to just go back and rebuild his home.
Yeah. And then, like, do the Lannisters let him go back to Winterfell and have a seat, even if it's limited power? Like having it feels like what we've been hearing from everybody who's not from the North is that you cannot have a Stark in Winterfell, because that is like their seat of power, and they will always low-key be trouble. Which is one of the reasons why the idea of Sansa inheriting Winterfell and then having Tyrion be the lord of it is, like, so appealing.
Right.
You know, so I don't know. It's not that so I'm, like, really conflicted, because it's partially, do I think this character, could this character ever make that choice? Could Robb Stark ever make the choice to lay down and bend the knee? Then, like, do the Lannisters even allow that? Like, is Cat just, like, wishful thinking here? You know?
I definitely think that. I mean, like, to speak about the situation, the Lannisters have their own whole thing that they have planned, clearly, in the works, pretty far along by now. Mm-hmm. So, no, if he tried to bend the knee now, I don't think that's happening. Because Tywin has got a fucking, like, royal flush that he just hasn't put on the table yet. But they are not aware that's happening. And if the Lannisters didn't have this situation as in hand, and let's take all of the other circumstantial stuff and say that's still going on, except the plan with the Freys isn't underway, I think then they would have accepted it. And probably would have made Robb take the black. So he would, like, live, and he would be able to, you know, the Winterfell would go to Sansa and Tyrion, and that's probably how that would go.
Right. One of the things that Kat says to him when she's trying to convince him, you know, that this is maybe a real option, is she says that the Lannisters don't want or need the North. And that they're going to basically keep Sansa as a prisoner. But it feels like Catelyn means they're going to keep Sansa in King's Landing. She says they're going to keep Sansa no matter what we do, so they have their hostage. And she's like, if you have any hope of holding the North, you have to get rid of the Greyjoys. And the Greyjoys are not going to let any bit of House Stark survive. Because, again, as long as there's any Starks around, they, you know, are going to argue their claim or whatever.
Right.
And then she said something really, really, she's like, do you think Lord Balin can afford to let her live to beat your heirs? Oh, to bear your heirs, talking about Jane. Like, so, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with you, even though I know we're coming from, like, two different things. I don't think that you're wrong either. Like, you know what it is? It's so far in this story that there is no way out. Really.
Yeah.
And anything that looks like it might be like a little bit of hope, a little door that's cracked open, the minute you start peering through it, all of the reasons why it's not going to work, like, are just there. Because really, it's too late. That's what's so frustrating about this, is that, like, it's just fucking too late for this conversation even that they're having, you know? Yeah. Ugh.
Yeah.
And they don't know how late it is.
Yeah, that's the thing. They're like negotiating this thing with the marriage between Edmure and a Frey, and they really think that they're figuring out their last resort, and it's just over, and they don't know that. Yep.
And Catelyn, she is so uncomfortable with this offer. Like, the minute they're like, the Freys, the bastard and the lame, are like, yeah, you need to come right away. And she's just like, right away? Right now? We have to come now? I don't like how that doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
But what can she do? She can't. I don't even think she doesn't even say anything. Does she even say anything?
She doesn't say anything. She just thinks to herself. And like one of the guys says, "Yeah, it's so weird. He doesn't like the idea of a long engagement anymore. I wonder why." And it just feels like, I mean, that doesn't sound completely unreasonable to have that attitude about it. So it's a pretty good ploy in that sense.
It is very good because this is a situation of their own making. Like Robb literally put them in this position. This backed into a corner with no real option, so they have to accept whatever Walder Frey is offering in this moment. Like, they just don't have a fucking leg to stand on. They need him. Everybody knows they need him. They can't even pretend like they don't. You know, they can't even bluff.
Yeah.
The whole time, every time these guys talk, Robb is like, I'm so glad that we put that ugliness behind us. I'm so glad that we can be friends again. I'm so, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's...
And I can't stop thinking about that fan theory that, like, Robb was actually entrapped much more than just, like, casually fell into bed with someone. Because that one act, that one decision is responsible for how so much goes, that it's just incredibly wild to switch my brain from fucking Robb fucking fell for the first piece of pussy to, like, oh my God, he was being played from the very beginning and he never stood a chance.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Some people really don't think that theory holds up at all, and others have like a laundry list of evidence that's circumstantial, but it, you know, like, so I don't know.
Yeah, like, and again, I don't even know which way I fall, but just like which way I believe. You know, it doesn't. I really personally, to me, I don't think it matters. Which I think is like, I don't feel like I have to be like, oh, I believe this is exactly the way it happened. But the thought of it is enough to be like, holy shit. Imagine if, you know what I mean? Like, it's just...
Yep. And there's this awful moment, like, at the end of this conversation where she tries to get him to think about just submitting, and he's like, they killed my father, and she says, do you think I have forgotten that? I don't know, have you?
Yeah.
And it says Catelyn had never struck her children in anger, but she almost struck Robb then.
Yeah.
And partially wish that she had.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
She asks for permission to leave, and he does, and then he turns away from her and pulls his sword. And there's, like, nobody in the room with him. He just pulls his sword, and she says that there are fights that no sword can win. But he is just this moment of, I think, feeling really powerless. You know, he knows he's backed into a fucking corner. Yep. He knows it. It.
And the whole idea, look, I swear I'm not going to say anything else after this, but him pulling his sword is very much, well, go vote for me. Because it's just this, we've done that and allegedly should be safe from what's happening now because, as he says, I've won all the battles. How am I losing the war? And it didn't work out because shady things are afoot. Because shady people gonna do shady things. And to a point, you gotta face that and be willing to play some of the fucking game, dude. But I digress.
Here we fucking are, because, you know, we always have to take the fucking high road. I don't know.
Sometimes the high road is the naive, childish road.
There's a reason I am afraid of heights.
Look. I'm going to just open up my postcard ideas real quick. Take the high road, ? It's good stuff.
The sounds that you type it are killing me right now.
Look, you think I'm playing? Every month I have a bit of a panic attack when I realize I have no idea what to do for the postcard. It always works out okay, but every time there's just this stress. And I mean to quell it this month. Okay.
So she leaves, and then we end up back at dinner after a little bit of time, and this is when the two Freys are at dinner, and Edmure's there, and we find out what the real deal is with what Walder Frey wants, and
the real asterisk deal.
So, first they give the real bad news about what's happened at Winterfell, and that it's been burned, and they cannot believe it. Like, they're, shocked the way anybody would be. And they find that, some of the lords tried to take it back when the Ironman came, but it just, wasn't.
Yeah, they make it sound like Theon is the one who did this.
Mm-hmm. And then they ask, like, where is Theon now? And it's just like, oh, we don't know. We're not sure what happened to him. Mm-hmm. And they name some of the people that were lost, and there's, it's very sad. There's, they named Maester, was it Lewin that was at Winterfell?
Yeah, Maester Lewin and Roger Cassell.
And, yeah. They don't know what happened to Theon, and, fucking, what is it? Someone says, the two Walders made no mention of his fate. Perhaps Lord Bolton might know. And then the Blackfish is like, yeah, we'll be certain to ask him. And I don't know if that's meant ominously or not, but I took it that way. I don't think there's any reason for him to be, like, shady, but I really felt like he was being shady. I
like that. The idea that he was, because that gives the vibe that maybe the Blackfish is starting to be like, something's not adding up.
I want that to be true, but I don't know if it is, and it doesn't end up really making much of a difference, does it? But there's something about him just being like, yeah, we will be certain to ask him
follow-up questions.
And then they move on to the marriage, and we find out that they have agreed to let Edmure marry in Robb's stead, but we're going to pick who it is.
Yes.
And we find out it is a 16-year-old girl who is the daughter of, like, his sixth wife. And Edmure is just like, maybe I should meet her, though. Fucking Walder Rivers is like, you'll meet when you're wed.
I love that. Unless Lord Tully feels the need to count her teeth first, which was so, like, this guy's aggressive.
Yeah, this is the bastard, right? And I think there's, like, a throwaway line when they're all feasting, and they're just like, everybody is, like, expressing condolences and sharing stories of, like, Lord Hoster and, like, their fond memories and all that kind of shit. And this motherfucker is not saying anything. He is eating his food and drinking his ale and not saying shit. This is, like, the first thing he said.
This is my favorite part of this, is that there's, like, the two, we've got good cop, bad cop. And the bastard is the one who's just like, the fuck you are. And meanwhile, Lothar is like, we sincerely regret that there is not time for us to, handle this in the way that would be ideal for the rest of you. It's very like Barack Obama and his anger management.
Yeah, absolutely. He's like, my brother has a soldier's bluntness.
And actually, Barack's anger translator was named Luther, which is pretty close to Lothar. So,
oh my God, he was named Luther, wasn't he? Oh my God, I had forgotten that bit. Oh
my God, I also forgot that, like, when they mention that it's it's Bolton's son who, like, went in. The two of them still think that Bolton's son is dead because of that, like, fake out.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So they're just like, wait, what? Like, just all of their information is so behind.
Yeah, somebody's like, wait, no, not Ramsay Snow. And freaking Robb is like, this Ramsay was a monster and a murderer, and he died a coward. Or so I was told. And the fucking Frey is like, I can't speak to that. There's a lot of confusion these days. You know, war is crazy.
You know how war be.
Many false reports. Fake news. He basically says fake news.
Fake. Sad.
And
there's also, like, when he says... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, he makes it a point to be like, I don't know everything that happened, but I can tell you that my nephews say it was Ramsay who saved them and saved the women of Winterfell. Which is just like a very specific lie.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, is it a lie? It's technically true.
I mean, yeah,
He did save them, and... I guess some of the women, apparently, but, like, for why and how did he?
Yeah, save them for later, am I right?
Wrapped them in foil and put them in the fridge. But, so the thing that I really enjoy is, and I don't know if this is, like, an intentional thing, but I like to think it is, when they're like, I am instructed to offer Lord Tully the hand of my sister, the Lady Roslyn, a maid of 16 years. Roslyn is my Lord Father's youngest daughter by Lady Bethany of House Rosby, his 6th wife. She has a gentle nature and a gift for music, which I read very much as, don't worry about it, she's got a good personality. That just felt very much like, I am explicitly not saying anything about her appearance.
Right. They never say that, you know, she's comely or beautiful or anything. She's got a gentle nature and a gift for music. Oh my God, you are right. I didn't even pick up on that. But
later on, he says something about how she's a cheerful girl. She'll help him in through his grief, things like this.
My God, I wonder if this is part of the reason why Edmure is being like, I need to see her first because y'all are not making me feel comfortable or confident. I really need to see this bitch first.
I mean, there's just a sort of sense that the Frey family line is not the most attractive.
Girl,
so
they are a mess.
Yeah.
And then we find out that, like, this is the offer that's on the table. And if you don't take it as is right now, then there's no fucking deal at all.
Yes.
There is no wiggle room. There is no room for negotiation. And Edmure tries to be like, well, you know, we can send a counter offer back to them. You know, and Edmure is under the impression that they need him more than he needs them for some reason. Which
literally says that later.
I don't understand where that came from. What
this
the
man
fuck is he talking
delusional. I cannot. This is what I'm saying. This is why I got so irritated with him this chapter. It's just like his whole attitude. Just completely misunderstanding his own market value, which is just a man trait.
Yeah, he's like, I'm his lord. He should be happy that I'm willing to marry any of them. And I guess Tully is like more of a noble house than the Freys, right?
Oh yeah, by far.
So technically, Edmure, this is marrying up for the Freys in every way. And Edmure is really stuck on that because in a different world, that is what would matter more. But the world has changed. And he just, you know.
I feel it in the water. I feel it in the earth.
And Catelyn is like, she's telling him again, you know, Walder Frey, he is a proud man and we hurt his pride. We embarrassed him. We're going to have to pay a price for that. And Edmure is just like, my answer is no. I'll not be shamed. My answer is no. And Robb comes in with I can't command. Oh, he doesn't say I can't. He says I will not. I will not command you to do this. Not in this, because he knows he fucked up. He really is not in a position to be making somebody agree to a marriage when he couldn't even fucking hold up his own end of the bargain.
Right.
But he says to Edmure, if you don't do this, the Freys will take this as another slight. And they won't forgive this. And Edmure says, you cannot know that. How can you... I know that.
Yep.
He doesn't think it's true. You have no way to know that. They've wanted me for one of his daughters since the day I was born. Huh.
Yeah. Back when you held all the cards because you were a Tully. And guess what, kiddo? That you don't hold any cards anymore.
Yep.
Like, the only card you've got is that you're Lord of Riverrun now, and that's literally it.
And that, like, is on some real shaky ground. Because, yeah. It just,
Yeah, the whole you cannot know that. Like, do you hear the tone of the men that you're dealing with right now? What about the vibe you're getting off them gives you the impression that there's going to be a second round here? Third round.
Yeah, exactly. Third round. So, Robb ends up just like, look, I have to fucking get to the north. I need to get to Winterfell. My people need to be avenged. I need to deal with the bastard because I don't know what the fuck is going on with that. Theon is still alive, might be on the loose. I cannot fucking sit here waiting for a wedding that may or may not happen. Mm-hmm. And Catelyn is like, it has to happen. And everybody is just like, we have to accept. And Edmure is like, we? I don't see you offering to become the 9th Lady Frey. And she fucking says in response, well, the 8th Lady Frey is still alive. But thinks to herself, you know what? Fuck. Because that shit could have went a different way for me.
Yeah. Thankfully. Mm-hmm. But she, I think, would have done it.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
You know, she really would have. It would have sucked and she would have hated it, but she would absolutely have done it, no question. Yep.
Luckily for her, he's just not interested in any old women. I don't see him marrying. I think he marries like teenagers every time, right? So, but, and then the Blackfish speaks up, kind of like a voice of reason, and it's just like, first of all, I'm not the kind of guy who goes around telling people who they have to marry. That's just not how I get down. Y'all know me. But, Edmure, nephew, you did say something just the other night about making amends for the Battle of the Fords. Mm-hmm. And it ends up being the last nail.
I had a different sort of amends in mind. Single combat with the Kingslayer. 7 years of penance as a begging brother. Swimming the sunset sea with my legs tied. When he saw that no one was smiling, Edmure threw up his hands. This is not the time for cute jokes.
Yeah. Sir. I'll wed the wench as amends.
This dude.
Yeah,
this
so now we're heading towards, it's all in the works now. We all know where this road leads. And I'm dreading it. Mm-hmm. Just dreading it.
Same.
But also really looking forward to it.
We're sick. We're really sick. But yeah, I think that this conversation is even like more... I had forgotten just how much he digs his heels in and refuses to accept reality. And there's like... In the reread, there's of course the tension of knowing where this is all headed and how futile it all is. But even for the first read through, there's the sense of like, this guy's Lord and he's going to be the one with the final say in decisions. And his judgment is so poor that the feel of everything is already like, if it went a whole other way, I don't even know that it would have, like... Edmure's just bad at this. He's bad at it. I don't know. I just get the feeling that he would be duped in some way eventually anyhow.
Yeah,
and maybe that's not fair, but...
Yeah, it's not our fault. George Martin wrote him the way he wrote him. Mm-hmm. And it definitely seems like he is put up to as someone who is... about to, and then eventually inherits like great power and is maybe not quite worthy of it. Granted, he seems to, And I don't know how it's going to play out in the book. I remember on the show, Edmure disappeared for like 3 seasons or some shit. Like he's just locked in a cage or like in a cell, and we don't see him for 3 years.
Yes.
So I don't know if that happens in the book, or if in the book he's loose and making like crazy bad decisions. That I have no idea he's doing shit. So I really don't know, but
There's the way you say he's loose.
Right?
It's like, just like he's out here just like feral going, yeah, I'm going to fight the Kingslayer. Bring it on. I guess now, though, he would win that fight.
I mean, wow.
All right. So real quick before we wrap, I want to say hi to some new patrons. Everybody, get ready for the dignified air horn. New patrons! We've got Ian Robertson, Dylan Tildesley, and Narafin. I hope that I'm saying that right. I hope I'm saying all of them right. Maybe Robertson isn't even said that way. Thank you guys for bearing with me when I just make bad jokes. So, yeah, guys, I just wanted to let you all know that Miles and I are going to be wrapping on what is available of the Mistborn series so far. There's another book coming out, but it's not out yet. And we are going to be starting the Sookie Stackhouse series, which is the series that True Blood is based on, which is much better than the show True Blood, by the way. And if you are interested in listening to our coverage of that, which I am psyched about because I've read them all, I'm the spoiled one for this, you should become a patron at patreon.com/unspoiled. $5 a month, and you get an extra episode a week of our coverage of this very silly series that I think is going to be a nice breath of fun and goofiness in the midst of a lot of bleak shit that is not also only happening in the world, but also what we are covering in other stuff. So if you're feeling like things have been a little bit relentless lately and you would like some escapism, I really, really recommend the Sookie Stackhouse series. I was very pleasantly surprised when I started them. I kind of had an expectation of the tone they would have, and it's actually written like much more progressively and wholesomely than you would think.
Really?
Yeah, it's fun. Granted, the show made some changes that I think are improvements on the books, like the way they changed Tara's character and Lafayette, which they're just, complete VIPs, MVPs, whatever. But despite those changes, the show was very bad. And the book series really is extremely different after the first one. The first book is almost identical to the first season of the show. And then after that, they vaguely take some, overall outlines of plots, but the show really bears no resemblance from that point on.
Also, you and I are finishing up Dresden, and Ted Lasso is coming, which I am super excited about. So if you're looking for something, that's not going to be is that going to be a patron-only show?
No, that's not patrons only.
Oh, it should be patrons only.
Do you guys hear this? This is what she's trying to do, because guys, look.
Well, here's the thing. I love this show so much, and I just don't want to have people. I don't want people to be like, "Oh, that show's so corny. It's too wholesome. It's not real." I don't want that.
Well, I don't think you have to worry about that with the crowd that listens to this show mostly. I may be wrong, but guys, you heard it here first. Rashawn doesn't want it, so if you have that in your heart, keep it to yourself. But yeah, guys, to be on a serious note, I am struggling right now financially again. Pledges went down. Prices of everything are going up. And I had the first month in a long time where I could not cover all of my expenses and had to take some money from Owen to cover some things. And it is not a great situation. Things had been so steady, and I got very happy and comfortable with where things were. And it has just, and I understand it, but if you are able to spare $5 a month, it would be so appreciated, and it really, really adds up fast. So, and also, some of this money goes to Rashawn for paying her mom's rent.
That's true.
This is real shit that we are, supporting here. So yeah, patreon.com/unspoiled. And you get not only Mistborn and the upcoming Sookie Stackhouse, but Miles and I covered... Oh my god, I hear Steve talking to the baby in the background. Guys, do you hear this adorableness? Rashawn has a new kitten.
You guys.
Tell the story.
Okay, so yesterday afternoon, Steven texted me and told me he was going to help his father move some stuff into the attic. And that's why he wouldn't be home when I got home. And then I was home, and I was watching Stranger Things, actually, because part 2 dropped yesterday.
Ooh.
And Steve comes into the house, and he is being really weird and shady. And he pulls his arm from behind his back, and he's got the cat carrier, and in it is a 12-week-old all-black female cat that we named Agita. And I wasn't really ready. You know, if he had asked me, hey, do you want to adopt a baby? I would have been like, no, it's too soon. Mm-hmm. But I'm so glad he didn't ask me. And she's so tiny, and she's so cute, and she's into everything, and I love her so much. And her name is Agita Asada Shakur de Ludovico.
It's amazing. I love your processes for naming your cats, because they all have like 12 names. And while humans having lots of names, I'm just like, calm down. When animals have lots of names, I find that shit just the best.
I like that we go through all this effort to give them these names, and then we never call them by those names.
It's on their birth certificate, and that's it.
But I am in love, you guys. You know, it's weird because I still miss my Roscoe so much. But then there's just like, so it's very, you know, like I'm swinging. Do you hear her?
Mm-hmm. She's loud as fuck.
She just has a lot to say. I don't know what she's talking about, but she's got a lot to say. She's back in the litter box again, and she's so chatty every time she's there.
I've heard that that's the thing with some cats, is that when they use the litter box, they have to like get your attention about it, and sometimes they just go running around afterward, like they finally have energy now that they've let all the poop out.
Roscoe would leave the litter box like she had committed a crime. She would just run out of the room so fast.
Look, I don't blame him, because that shit doesn't get flushed away. It's just sitting there, so I would want to get the fuck out also. Not mad.
But I haven't really shared any pictures yet. I haven't even posted anything. Steve posted, but I haven't, and tagged me, but I haven't actually put up a post about her yet, because I just was all over the place emotionally, and I ended up spending all last night with her and never even, like, I texted you, and that was it.
Aww.
But,
God, she's so cute.
She is hopping back and forth, right? She's got doing that kitten hop, you know, where they're like springs. So God. She just hopped into the hallway where I could see her, and then she just hopped back out of sight, and then she hopped back in. So I'm going to go play with my cat.
Yay. All right. Well, wrapping up, just I was saying you're not only going to... Is that real?
Yeah.
I swear to God, it sounds like Steve's doing it. It sounds like he's making fun of her.
Nope.
But there's like a huge back catalog of stuff as well. And Miles and I also covered Twilight at one point, and it was so much fun to cover. It was like not a hate fest like you might think. It was actually genuinely, there were moments where we were like, actually, this kind of rules. Mm-hmm. But then, of course, there are many places where we're like, wow, yikes. So, yeah, if you are wanting some other fun vampire stuff, there's the back catalog to tide you over until, you know, we start Sookie Stackhouse, which is called the Southern Vampire series, which I don't know why, but that's so funny sounding to me.
I never heard it called that. I always thought it was called the Sookie Stackhouse series.
That's what I call it, because everybody knows her name because it's such a weird name that they immediately know what I'm talking about. But Southern Vampire series is like its official name, and it's just a little bit like, I don't know. There's something about that name that feels so weirdly generic.
Right? It doesn't sound great at all.
Yeah.
Like, I can't believe a publisher was like, yeah, we'll just go with that.
Let's do it. So anyway, all right, guys. Thank you again so much. Appreciate those of you who did sign up to be patrons. Patreon.com/unspoiled. And we will see you next week with 2 more chapters. Until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye, guys.
You're free. Cersei, Walder Frey, Meryn Trant, Tywin Lannister.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.